Ladies and gentlemen, Wuthering Waves has basically officially released a brand new, very high difficulty endgame mode, Virtual Crisis. The prototype trials for it, we do believe that it's going to become a real endgame mode after a couple of beta tests, much like how Whimpering Wastes was the result of Pincer Maneuver Warriors. And so when it comes to this event, one of the big flexes is being able to reach a full 120 levels when it comes to your stress. You're going to go ahead, play all these different teams, a wide variety of different debuffs, or sometimes even buffs as well if they show up in the green, affecting your units. And with the wide array of different buffs that are available, right, there are some units that are going to be much stronger than others when it comes to various stages. And so what I wanted to do today was just make a generalized tier list for the game mode to talk about which units are performing on average, just top tier across all the various types of content. There are some specific stages that are really going to push for some units being used over others. But what I wanted to do was just break down who some of just the best general overall units are going to be, no matter which stage you're going to work on. And, you know, kind of like use that to outline who you probably want to be leveling and using for this mode. So with that, we're going to go in order of release of every single limited character and give our reasons for why certain ones are weaker or stronger in this type of content. And so with that, let's go ahead and dive into our first character, Jiyan. The first character released in version 1.0 at the launch of the game. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be entirely honest with you. I think bro is kind of really bad. I am at the point where I've experimented with him in a bunch of the different stages. I've seen all the different types of content that are available, and oh my, this guy just seems like he kind of isn't meant to synergize with a lot of the stuff that is going on. And the real issue for this is that he is essentially locked into being melee. He has no real meaningful way to damage enemies at all from any sort of range. And what that means is that certain stages like Penitence End, the Disaster Trial, which has enemies that essentially take a shit ton of your HP. Within a certain range around enemies, resonators take damage equal to 2.2 of their max HP every 0.5 seconds. Some of these are just really unplayable for melee units that are not able to, you know, really effectively damage enemies, you know, unless they're right up close next to them. There are a lot of other trials as well, such as the Desert Highlands one, where your max HP is reduced to 10% and you're incentivized to dodge a lot. Dodging is one of the worst things that Jiyan can do while he's on the field. He literally has a timer on his Resonance Liberation that will tick down as he's dodging. He's kind of one of those units that just wants to like face tank everything, tank those hits, but then still get off his Qinglong attacks. And the end result is just he doesn't feel very good to use in a lot of the disaster trials at high stress levels. At lower stress levels with none of those debuffs, he's going to be perfectly fine. There's no real concerns at all. But at the higher ones, boy oh boy, the cracks, at least the weaknesses in his kit, are very heavily emphasized by a lot of the buffs that we have going on. Obviously, those buffs could change in the future and we could see a rise in his rankings. But for now, on this update, I just don't think he's very good at all. And there's not a lot of like really big AoE situations that command his grouping. And if they are big AoE situations, then well, let me just show you something over here. I do believe there's like one instance of like enemies really getting a lot of extra, immune to interruption resistance. The enemies are immune to interruption while above 50% HP, so Jiyan can't even like group these enemies. There is something in each stage that makes his life significantly worse. Even in the port city of Guizhou, the first one, it's like meteors rain down and then leave burning traps. That just means that Jiyan, who's relatively immobile, is getting hurt by that as well. So he's gonna be there in C. We might move him up later depending on where everybody else is at. Now, we got Yinlin. And boy, oh boy, I do think I'm going to have to put Yinlin in A, if not potentially S. And the reason for that is that Yinlin has one of the biggest benefits possible in this game mode, a big wide array of AoE and also a lot of decent sustained damage, as well as the ability, right, to inflict damage to enemies via coordinated attacks. This is incredibly important in one game mode in particular, Penitence End, where getting all the way up to the maximum number of stacks means that, well, enemies are going to take 90% less damage while they're not staggered, and coordinated attacks release a shockwave on hit that reduces their vibration strength by 70.5% and basically makes them break faster. What this means is that, well, Yinlin is like one of the best possible characters you can use for one of the stages. And when it comes to other stages that aren't as focused on coordinated attacks, she can very easily attack enemies at range. There's not a lot of risk of like dying or taking a lot of damage while you're using her. And when survivability is the name of the game, because none of these modes have a time limit, she is able to deliver her damage very easily, very effectively, and her mark for coordinated attacks lasts a pretty long time and gives you a lot of freedom to like move around, maneuver, do all of that stuff that you need to do to get the clear. So that's going to be that. That's going to be Yinlin. And she is, you know, admittedly a little bit clunky in other game modes, but she seems to be working out fine over here, just getting herself to work. Now we got Jinhsi, and boy, oh boy, this character almost seems designed for this game mode. And the reason for that is she needs coordinated attacks to work. And so that makes her like easy slot in on like the one area where you need them. And then when it comes to how you're actually able to buff her, you can select support modules in this game mode that essentially will have a very big buffing effect. And one of the ones you can use, it's called Preemptive Strike. Dealing resonant skill damage to enemies with more than 70% HP increases the Resonator's crit damage by 200%. And Jinhsi is basically, you press a button and then deal a resonant skill damage nuke. You just straight up walk up to an enemy that has, you know, roughly around 80, 85, 90, 75, 100% HP. You press the nuke button on them and they will take like so much damage, it's almost unbelievable. And the end result is that she has like a perfect best in slot sort of buff she can work with that trivializes pretty much every single boss that's in the game mode. There's Infernal Rider over here, who's one boss. You have the Dragon of Dirge, another boss. You got the Tempest Mephis, another boss. And then of course, the Sentry Construct, another boss. And while she's not that great against the Sentry Construct, she has no type resistances at all. There are no spectral enemies. And so she's just dealing full damage to everybody all the time. And that's kind of just it. And then she has the coordinated attacks to break shields. She has the air mobility as well. So this crazy buff that we're seeing over here, while within a certain range around enemies, Resonators take damage equal to 2.2. She isn't even affected by that. I'll just show you firsthand how strong this buff is. Really, this debuff is, and how fast it will kill your team. I'll just show you firsthand how ridiculous it is. Because we talked about it as a big weakness for Jiyan, and we're talking about it as a strength for Jinhsi. I've got to demonstrate to you why it's a strength. They're not even attacking me, and I'm already dead. They weren't even attacking me, and I'm already dead. Look at that. She's cooked. I looked at chat for half a second and we're already done. That's how fast when those auras stack, that your HP will just melt. And it's crazy. It is crazy to witness firsthand. Imagine playing a melee unit into that shit. So you can kind of see firsthand just how ridiculous some of the buffs are. And when Jinhsi is a character that can just ignore all of that completely because she's in the air, boy, oh boy, that is quite a big strength. And her being in the air lets her avoid a lot of the other environmental hazards that get spawned by all of the various stages. There are a ton of them. A ton of them. Now, let's move on from Jinhsi and then get into Changli. When it comes to Changli, I've got to say, I think she's at the top tier in A. And the reason why she's an A isn't really because of her, because I'm gonna be real here, I don't feel like she has any exceptional crazy strength in this game mode other than, you know, having a ton of iframes during her skill and then being able to attack in the air. The reason why she's up here is because she pairs with probably the best unit in the game for this game mode. She pairs well with Brant, and a bit of a spoiler warning, Brant is going to be the best unit in the game for this content. We'll get into the reasons why, but because Changli pairs so brilliantly with Brant, she, you know, has all those air attacks that synergize with his. He has a fusion and resonance skill buffing outro skill that synergizes with her damage output. She's basically one of his best partners, and she gets elevated super, super high in the tier list because of him. And I don't feel like using Brant with Changli is even Brant's best team, but Brant is Changli's best partner. And so because of that, I think it works out really well. When it comes to Changli, I don't think she has any specific synergy with like any of the various enemies or any of the various buffs. The main one kind of is that while in midair, Resonator's attack is increased by 100%. That's the main one that she synergizes with, but like Brant uses this way better than she does. So it's because you want another character that can work in midair and gain the buff that Brant's getting, and Changli is kind of like the best partner for it. And so that's kind of like why she's a high value unit in this game mode. It's because she works with Brant. If you don't have Brant with her, I think she maybe drops down to maybe like B or even like top of C. I'm gonna be real with you, because I don't think like quick swap, that sort of mechanics, that sort of like really fast-paced way of clearing, I don't think it's very helpful at all in this game mode. And when Changli isn't quick swapped, I'm gonna be real here, I do feel like she has a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of ways to, you know, just straight up like die, a lot of really easily interruptible abilities when you don't swap. But if you do have Brant and you're quick swapping with her, she works really well. All right, now we got Zhezhi. Zhezhi's an S. Zhezhi is an S for a couple of reasons. First, she has coordinated attacks, so the same reason for Yinlin and that same exact buff that we saw before applies. And Zhezhi also has something very, very important as well. She is really, really easy to play and very, very, very high survivability. It is really hard to like get caught out as Zhezhi because of like a couple of really simple things. Like first and foremost, this unit is just... I'll just put her in the team to demonstrate it. This unit is just so mobile, it's ridiculous. This unit has so much built-in survivability, it's absurd. Like, how is the enemy ever gonna hit you? You can dodge so many attacks. It has no cooldown as well. It's dependent on your forte circuit. Like, her skill that summons everything you can teleport with has a 6-second cooldown, right? So you're just like, there's so many different ways to like avoid damage with this character. She has an incredible outro skill that buffs like resonant skill damage and works well with Jinhsi and works well with Carlotta. Probably like low-key best in slots for them, and they're two of the best characters in this game mode. Because Zhezhi is supporting characters that are like so good, she has to be ranked top tier, in my opinion. And when you factor in her coordinated attacks, disregard her buffing, you factor in her coordinated attacks and evasiveness and content that's about surviving. Well, I mean, what else can I really say about the unit other than she's S? She's very good, possibly one of the best sub DPS characters on the roster. Though, once you see the other sub DPS characters, you'll understand why she might be moved down. I might be thinking about bumping everybody down a tier to really just show how good some of the units are, but we'll think about that later. All right, next up, we got Xiangli Yao. I think Xiangli Yao goes into A. And the reason why I say Xiangli Yao goes into A is that he has a lot of like survivability utility, but simply due to him being a melee character, I can't really rate him that high. Melee characters in this reset, or really this introduction of Virtual Crisis, the fact that there is a single stage that actually makes melee characters feel borderline unplayable is kind of like enough for me to rate all melee characters just a little bit lower naturally. I might actually drop Xiangli Yao down to B. The fact of the matter is, there is no stage like Penitent's End, but the fact that Penitent's End is there, we saw what the HP drain is looking like, and the fact that Xiangli Yao has to be in melee range to deal his damage, it means that he's kind of just unusable on one of the stages. And while he still might perform against enemies in the port city of Guizhou or the Desert Rock Highlands, when the name of the game mode isn't about clear time, it's about survivability, and he is one of the more vulnerable characters on the roster, despite his time slow, well, I can't really rate him that high, especially compared to way safer options on the roster. There are way more safer options that can even do more damage than him too, and while his time slow is helpful, it doesn't feel like that crazy here. You should also factor in that he also has a, well, Thundering Mephis as one of the bosses as well, so he is going to have that type disadvantage too. So all in all, I think I might just put him in B. I think if you are a melee character, if you are a melee unit that needs to spend an extended amount of time in melee to deal your damage, I think you are just naturally going to be rated lower. Next up, we got Shorekeeper. And ironically enough, this might be one of the situations where I actually don't rate Shorekeeper incredibly super high. The reason why is kind of simple. Shorekeeper doesn't have that much healing. She also doesn't have coordinated attacks. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. We all know about Penitent's End and how enemies take no damage unless they have their vibration bar depleted. Shorekeeper's lack of coordinated attacks in this stage is actually meaningfully apparent. You can feel it as a player. You see this team over here? It's better if you slot in Verena. It's legitimately better. And that's kind of like one of the things that specific buffs like this can do. I would say in maybe the other stages, Shorekeeper could potentially be better, but Verena also has those coordinated attacks and higher healing than Shorekeeper does. And the end result is that oftentimes, I'll just rate Verena at the same time. I gotta say that Verena kind of feels like a bit of a stronger pick compared to Shorekeeper. You might be able to put her at end of S, but I'm not gonna lie, all of these damage buffs, all, this focus on like doing her enhanced intro, getting, the crit rate and the crit damage, it doesn't feel as important. There's not really as much of a need for it in this game mode. And Shorekeeper does heal, she does have the sustain, but it's not as good as other units. And when healing or sustaining is kind of a bit more important, Shorekeeper's lack of it can be felt pretty significantly. And so while Shorekeeper does definitely have superior damage buffs, your damage buffs don't matter as much because there's no time limit. And so you can kind of tell when content doesn't have a time limit, that can cause a lot of the rankings to shift pretty significantly. And Shorekeeper is one of those units that, well, when a time limit is in and a time limit is the focus, she's better than other units. But when it's not, a lot of her advantages aren't really advantages anymore. So that's going to be that. That's going to be her. Now let's move on to Cantarella. Or sorry, not Cantarella, Camellya. Yeah, this character feels so bad to play in certain stages. It's unbelievable. I actually haven't even found a stage where Camellya feels good. You remember that stage, Penitent's End, that I was talking about over here? I would rather go do stuff in Minecraft than play Camellya on Penitent's End. I literally would. It was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had in this game. It can probably be done because there's no time limit, but I'm not here to just kite enemies for 30 hours and then say I cleared when the timer says 20 minutes. Like, I'm here to play the game, not run around like a headless chicken. When you attempt to do anything properly with Camellya in this game mode, you will just, like, die. Even this trial stage over here, Camellya was the worst feeling character on the team. It just feels like in content like this, where the focus is survivability, and Camellya's big thing is standing completely fucking still and spinning in this type of content, it feels like a little bit off. And then she has like that wind-up time as well, the vulnerability window during ephemeral. It's like, in some ways, can actually feel worse than Jiyan to play. I'm gonna be real. I feel like Jiyan at least has like his skill for like a little bit of baseline mobility, but Jiyan doesn't have to worry about like fucking dealing with like ephemeral in the middle of his rotation. He can at least like dodge cancel his moves, right? To deal optimal DPS. Camellya's just over here and she's just like, keep dancing. And then when she dodges, oh, she starts another attack animation. It takes so fucking long. I'll just show you firsthand. She takes so long to like rewind her attack animation. It's just, I feel like I'm in molasses. Right here, when she does this. Yeah, like once you're spinning, it's good, but you gotta dodge. You gotta dodge again. Oh, yeah, dodge again. Oh, the enemy. Oh, we're doing no damage here. We're literally doing nothing here if this is all we end up doing. But sometimes we have to do that in these game modes when we're trying to survive. And when that's the case, we never actually get to like reaching her big DPS over here. We're just stuck here fucking dodging and repositioning the entire time. And it takes a really goddamn long time to get into her like actual meaty rotation. Half of your gameplay is going to look like this. I'm not even joking in this game mode. You're going to be looking like this with her. And you're just going to be like, damn. Why am I even using this character? So that's my take on Camellya not being that good. I do find it a little bit ironic that Camellya and Shorekeeper are sort of like the on-banner characters while Virtual Crisis is on, because I'm not gonna lie, Verina's better than Shorekeeper 1,000,000%, and like Camellya might be one of the worst feeling units I've ever used in this game mode. If you dodge like that, Jiyan will do less damage. Absolutely, but this is the thing. You know what Jiyan can do? Jiyan can press the WASD button and reposition himself. The only way she can reposition is by dodging. And when you dodge, and then this is the windup, oh gosh. Oh gosh, it's not very good. This is not like Wuthering Waves where you can stay in the same spot and the enemies will spawn in it. You gotta move around a lot in this game mode. And when that happens, it can be a very rough time for her. If she's in white-haired mode, it's not too bad, but a lot of the stages have the need for like AoE at times. You can definitely try to make her work, but she just doesn't feel right. She does not feel right here. She's probably the worst feeling DPS out of all of the ones that I've used and experimented with in this game mode. 1,000,000%. Next up, we got Carlotta. I mean, what did you think? The final enemy in all the stages is a boss. And we all know that Carlotta is hands down the #1 boss slayer in the game. She's so good that I can recommend her on pretty much every single stage. Pretty much every single stage other than Alvarado Vault. And the only reason why I can't recommend her here is because it's the Sentry Construct and that thing is Glacial Immune. She has the freeze, she has the mobility, she has the built-in kiting. She's able to easily dodge enemy attacks, she's able to easily CC enemies, and she does the most single target damage in the game and at the same time. Has iframes, has the freezing, has even a freeze on her Echo skill too, because why the fuck not at this this point. And then she pairs with Zhezhi, who's also has very high survivability. It's a mix of everything that just makes this character really, really, really damn good. And she is, in my mind, now with Virtual Crisis being added in, might be one of the highest value characters in the game if you're looking at Endgame as a whole. Because boy, oh boy, it's almost like going into the TOA again with how the rankings are looking. It's a little bit weird how Virtual Crisis has been able to bring it back, despite being, you know, potentially more AoE focused. Having no time limit makes those characters with a lot of mobility and extra survivability like these two really, really, really valuable. Next up, we got Roccia. I fucking hate this unit. I think she could even be lower. The amount of just like sheer interruptions that she'll have from all of the different environmental effects, all the different enemies, it's like, unless you have this character S1, she actually feels almost unplayable. The number of times that I have been like off-screened by an enemy's air attack and then knocked her out of her tornado and completely griefed her rotation is too high. She's just actually not, she just feels so bad to use. If you want to like Giga Sweat, get eyes on the back of your head, and then like constantly pan your camera around while she's jumping, I'll show you what it looks like firsthand. If that's what you want to do, be my guest, but like, I just don't really find that to be enjoyable gameplay, right? You're just gonna be over here, and then you gotta like, you gotta make sure you see like everything and then like incorporate dodges into your rotation as well. I'm good, man. I'm playing this character to be a sub DPS, but I have to pay attention to them like they're a main DPS, right? You gotta be like doing all of that, doing your dodges in the air. I'm good. It's way too much micromanagement to make this character not feel like shit, because what'll end up happening most of the time is like some enemy will just like snipe you out of the air, knock you to the fucking ground, and then you just have to restart your entire combo. But if you do have her S1, she improves dramatically. But I've gotten interrupted with her way too many times. I'd literally rather use Sanhua in pretty much every single way, because she's way more convenient and she's not going to get interrupted as much. 1,000,000%. Phoebe, S. Phoebe's S. And the reason why Phoebe is S is pretty simple. She has the same exact CC that Carlotta does, except it's in an AoE. She also has pretty easy to use gameplay where she just like spams heavy attacks. She has a ton of synergy with dodge counters, which is like a big thing in this mode. You want to dodge a lot. And she also pairs with Aero Rover, who, while not being S tier, is really good for this game mode because of their time slow. Because when survival is the name of the game, and you have a unit like Aero Rover that can just go in and literally stop time for 3 seconds, we have Phoebe's 2-second pause as well on her skill. We're basically just like CCing them forever. And Rover, while he is melee and does suffer from a couple of the stages, you can kind of just use your skill after an intro, use your liberation, and then just fuck right off, right? You don't need to spend a huge amount of field time on them. And unless you're in like one of the nasty stages with like a bunch of monsters and you feel the lack of frazzle application, it's not as bad as multi-wave like Weewa, keeping up frazzle stacks on enemies. You also have something really nice as well in this game mode as direct support for Phoebe, and that is going to be, let me just show you all, a custom stress module focused on increasing your attack by up to 75%. Your attack boost, as long as you deal damage to somebody with Spectrofrazzle on them, you'll get a 75% attack buff permanently across the entire fight. It's ridiculous. Just make sure you keep 1 stack of Frazzle on them at the very least. That makes it so that her damage is just pretty consistent. It's very high, no matter what you're really doing. And big AoE, safe gameplay. The only problem is just keeping up the Frazzle stacks, and it's not as hard as it is in Weewa. It's actually pretty simple. Next up, we got Brant. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to move some of the characters down. I'm just going to move some of the characters down now. I think I'll keep Shorekeeper at A. I'm going to put Zhezhi down here. The reason why is because Brant is basically designed for this game mode. A big thing about this event is that you're constantly taking damage, you constantly have to dodge, and survivability is really, really, really important. And the main thing is, yeah, we'll keep Jiyan and C. The main thing is, when it comes to, we'll probably move Xiangli Yao up. The main thing is, when it comes to Brant and why he's so good, is that he has 2 levers of survivability, right? Bro basically has a shit ton of healing through here that scales off his ER. He has a shield as well, just from his Forte circuit, building up Bravo, and then using Return from Ashes that does a shit ton of damage. And then he also has his Resonance Liberation that provides healing on its own, just from casting it. And so that means that A, he saves you from big hits, from big nukes with his shield, and then he constantly keeps your team from taking chip damage through the healing on Bravo, which gets even higher when he uses his liberation because he'll be getting all those ticks faster. The end result is that Brant's able to solo sustain, but Brant's damage is high enough with a proper build to be paired with a sustain as well and not really lose any damage output. And so he lets you double up on the healing and makes pretty much any stage entirely possible and actually pretty easy. He, in a lot of ways, will completely trivialize the endgame mode. The reason why I have to say this is because I just went ahead. I went to Alvarado Vault on rank 30. This is against the Sentry Construct. I simply use Brant and Shorekeeper. Shorekeeper's not as good as healing as Verena. I'd simply use Brant and Shorekeeper, and then I almost fell asleep because the bosses have a lot of HP. There's an infinite time limit, and I was functionally immortal. I was functionally immortal as long as I spent enough field time on Brant and I got his shield and his healing enough times. The fight took about 4 minutes. It was like 4 minutes of absolutely zero stress gameplay. I did pretty much absolutely nothing. Like, there was no pressure at all. And we were just able to clear, just mindlessly attacking, not even worrying about rotations or keeping buff uptime on anything. He is, in a lot of ways, a complete cheat code for this game mode. The only stage where you might have some difficulty is actually over here, where Resonator max HP is reduced to 10%. However, he still has a shield. Brant still has a shield that will cover up your 10% reduced HP. So he's even the best in slot for this stage too. There's pretty much no stage where he's like bad on, because even on Penance's End that has the Dragon of Dirge that's fusion resistant, well, there's no time limit, so type resistance doesn't matter. You'll just take longer. And this whole certain range around enemies, the HP drain that we saw that was monstrous, he's in the air while attacking, and so he isn't even affected by this HP drain. And so the end result is that just this character is absolutely ball-bustingly, mindlessly easy to play in this game mode. If you have him, there's pretty much no excuse to not 30 out of 30 because he ensures that your team will never die. You're functionally immortal. And it's kind of broken. Like, I don't want to say it's like super giga crazy ass. It feels illegal what you're doing. Next up, we're gonna have the next healer sub DPS hybrid, Cantarella. And yeah, I do think that she's just gonna have to take second slot here because she combines, again, that blend of damage and healing. Cantarella essentially requires you to enter into her enhanced state, Mirage. And then once Cantarella goes ahead and enters Mirage, anytime she consumes her 5-stack Forte circuit, she will heal the team, right? Healing by consuming Trance, it's not that much, but then she'll use like a special nuke move, and this one actually heals a lot. It heals like pretty significantly. And the end result is, while Cantarella might not have a shield, her simply going through her rotation will top up your team and reduce all the chip damage. But I do have to say, she is kind of significantly worse than Brant in almost every single way. I don't mean that in like you know, Cantarella's weak. It's just Brant's like so good compared to her. It's a little ridiculous because Cantarella does do an impressive amount of damage, but her healing isn't as good as Brant. She doesn't have a shield, but you probably don't need one as long as you're running Cantarella with another sustain like a Shorekeeper or a Verena. The reason why these two characters are so strong is because, again, Virtual Crisis has no time limit. It's all about survival. These characters fulfill the sub DPS role and also heal, and they can simply be doubled up with a sustain unit. And that means that you're just going to have way more sustain, way more healing than other teams, and not really sacrifice too much damage output. Brant does more damage than Cantarella and has better sustain. And so that's why I'm saying that she's just kind of like a lot worse than him. However, she does have a big advantage to him on one stage, and that is going to be Penance's End because of that coordinated attack interaction. That's going to be the only one. But yeah, Brant's pretty much better than her on every other. I do think that the only reason why there are two fusion bosses over here, Inferno Rider on Port City and then Penance's End with the dragon, is that they didn't want Brant to be too overwhelmingly strong. They wanted like some type of like resistance so that he wasn't just steamrolling all of them, because boy oh boy, you use him here in Desert Rock or you use him here and he's just going to trivialize them completely. So they probably wanted to incentivize you to not use fusion characters and not pick him up here, because bro just literally dog walks the entire game mode. Next up, we're gonna have Aero Rover. I'm going to put Aero Rover in A. And the reason for that is they serve a very similar role to Brant and Cantarella. They heal while doing damage at the same time and let you double up on the support. The only reason why they're not higher is that nobody really works with them right now. They're kind of just bad at the current stage of the game. They don't buff as much as other supports. They don't do that much damage, again, relative to a Brant or a Cantarella, and they need Aero Erosion to function properly, and no unit in the game has Aero Erosion. Like, literally the only way he can do it is to convert Confession Phoebe stacks. And if you're playing Confession Phoebe and Aero Rover in this game mode, be my guest, you're probably going to take like 30 minutes to clear. You're probably going to take like a full 30 minutes to clear, but maybe that's fine if you just want to experiment with it. A lot of people are speculating that Kachona, you know, the arrow pistol character coming out in 2.3 is going to work with Aero Rover and actually have that erosion. We'll just have to wait and see. But for now, I would say just based off their DPS capabilities, I think I would maybe put them into B just because they have damage and healing at the same time and you can double up. But we expect them to rise in the future if the game mode comes back and they actually get more partners they can use. All right. That's going to be that. Encore. Same exact situation that we're seeing over here for all of the melee units. There's a reason why I don't have them rated particularly high. She's way too vulnerable, requires super long attack animations to get off her damage, and she's also fusion, and there's 2 fusion resistant bosses. So that's why she's going to be there. Calcharo, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not even going to put him into C. I'm just going to put him into D. I feel like Calcharo just has to feel even worse than Camellya in this game mode. I personally haven't given him a spin, but we know that this dude literally has like a staggering DPS loss if he dodges, and you have to dodge a lot in this game mode if you want to survive, unless you have Brant on your team. Maybe if you run like Brant Calcharo, it'll be fine, but yeah, I can't really approve of this at all for any person. This is probably like playing these 2 characters in Virtual Crisis is like you have like a punishment fetish or something. You want to like actively, you have fun from not having fun. That's the way that I would word it if you're playing these 2. Jiyan. She actually has a lot of potential. She actually has a lot of potential if you do fully build her, but this is what you're going to have to do for Jiyan to reach her full potential. Jiyan's biggest downside is the fact that she takes so fucking long to do anything on the field, but Virtual Crisis has no time limit. And what that means is you can get the full value of her major Zhoshan outer shield, and the scaling on this is absolutely insane. The shield heals, it lasts 30 seconds, and it has the potential to be equivalent to like your entire HP bar. However, she's not going to do any damage if she's built for shielding, despite it scaling off of attack. She probably goes into B because her liberation is pretty much fucking useless. Her liberation is pretty much entirely goddamn useless, and she is also entirely melee, and she suffers from a lot of the issues that all of the other melee characters have. Super mobile bosses in a lot of ways, and yeah, she completely, her shield just shatters instantly on Penitent's End against those enemies that we saw melting people. So I would say as a survivability option at full build, she will get you to where you need to go, but I wouldn't rely on her too much. I still think like traditional healers and shielders are probably going to get the job done. Don't, just stop it. If you're thinking about using Ling Yang, just think about how all of these other characters are suffering. Just stop it. Just don't. Just don't. Come on, bro, he's good? No. Nah, I mean, it's like, maybe you could like finagle him dodging some of the attacks by like jumping on his fucking bongo drums. But let's be real here, that's not very good. I don't think that's gonna be very good. Did you try him out? No, but I can already imagine how not good he is. Dan Jin, what are you doing here? I mean, like... Guys, like, if you're trying to play this game mode as Dan Jin, I'm gonna be real, you will just be gray screened the entire time. This unit literally kills herself by using her skill. She literally reduces her own HP. It's a literal debuff. The only stage that I would say Dan Jin is like good on is probably Desert Rock Highlands, where your max HP is already reduced to 10%. And then you gain invulnerability as long as you're Symphony rank S. That's probably Dan Jin's best stage. Okay, based off that viability, I think I'll put her into V, put her into B. But every other stage, I think it's enough to drop her down. There are so many other stages with like incremental AoE damage. There's one that freezes you if you're like too close to certain things and Glacio Chaff skills build up. If you take a hit there, you're just cooked, brother man. And there's so many easy ways for her to just get like off-screened or killed by a stage mechanic. I cannot recommend her unless you really want to be sweaty. And again, she's melee and suffers the exact same issues that every melee character has. The melees are just not good in this game mode. I will stand by that. Xiangli's the highest rated one because he has a time slow. Alto, surprisingly okay. Alto's actually surprisingly okay, because survivability is the name of the game. He summons a taunt, a miss clone, that inherits his HP by using his resonance skill. And so he can distract enemies, let you focus down on, you know, some part of the stage first, and the end result is that even though he's incredibly single target focused, it's not that bad. It's not that terrible. It's actually pretty okay. And yeah, I would not like recommend him, but you can give him a spin. And if you're an Alto main, you should have a bit of fun in this game mode. Chisha, same exact reason. Range characters are inherently just better in this game mode than melee characters are. And if Chisha is the name of the game for you, Chisha is very safe, has very strong dodge counters. This mode is almost a little bit like holograms because survivability is so important for all these units. So yeah, I would put Chisha pretty high because she has like the burst potential. She has the ability to kite while doing damage. She has the really strong dodge counters. And it's like a mix that works out pretty decently for you. Now, we got Tao Chi. We got Tao Chi. I'm gonna have to go ahead and put her into A. Tao Chi's biggest weakness is her lack of field time, or her excessive field time. But the thing about Tao Chi is she's probably the tankiest unit in the game. She's probably, bar none, the best unit when it comes to survivability. And that's because A, she has the thing called Rock Steady Shield whenever she uses a skill, literally gains 15% damage reduction per stack. So that gives her 45%. And then she has defense scaling on HP recovery, defense scaling on her shield. And the end result is that if you use this character and then you build up her stacks and you just get the shielding ready, she is in a lot of ways similar to Brant. She functionally makes your team immortal as long as you're constantly swapping to her to refresh the stuff. But boy, oh boy, she does no fucking damage. And so that's why she's just lower than Brant or Cantarella. She makes your team immortal, but does no damage. And that's kind of like the issue. She is still going to be rated super high though, because sustain is the main thing, is the name of the game. And her shield is so easy to refresh, it's unbelievable. Just intro skill onto her. She'll get a full 3 counter stack on her forte, and then you just basic attack 3 times. And then you become invulnerable, a tank. Use her with Discord, or even use her with the weapon that increases her defense. And you'll just never die, you'll be fine. Mortefi. I'm gonna have to rate Mortefi in B. While even though he does have coordinated attacks, actually, I'm gonna rate him in A, because he is usable with Phoebe. He is usable with Jiyan as well, who unfortunately is melee. But bro actually has the fastest coordinated attacks in the game. And I don't know if you've actually tried using Mortefi in certain types of content. Let me just show you an example of what I'm talking about. Mortefi, when he's being used in Penitent's End, this whole vibration strength thing, coordinated attacks, Mortefi has the fastest coordinated attacks in the game, and they all deal the 7.5%. It doesn't matter how fast, or it doesn't matter how many you do, every single one will deal this damage. And boy, oh boy, Mortefi breaks these shields like it's nobody's business. He's also very concerto efficient. He's also ranged. And so he has like one of the easiest concerto buildups as well, with the whole pistol and everything going on. And the end result is that, hey, you use him with Phoebe, you'll do great. Use him with Jiyan, you'll struggle, but you'll probably do great. And honestly, once more heavy attackers come out, he'll be even better. I might put him into top of B for now, but that's kind of like where I'm thinking about him. Yanwu. I mean, this guy is kind of just like the last resort. You're literally only going onto him to use coordinated attacks, and then sometimes maybe his liberation for the shield. But this guy's shield is just worse than every other unit's. He just straight up has the worst shield in the game. Because, let's just be real here. Alright, let me just show you guys Yanwu. When it comes to Yanwu, bro's shield is only unlocked when he's S4. It scales off his defense, and then the only other thing he does is coordinated attacks and maybe interruption resistance. He does negative damage. And if you need coordinated attacks, if you need them for this stage, just use Verena. If you don't have Verena, sure, I guess use Yanwu. But if you don't have Verena at this point, I guess the question is, like, what are you kind of like doing? You don't have any limit on how often you can use a character. This isn't like the TOA. You can use the same exact team every single time. And Yanwu is just, he's like your last resort for coordinated attacks. His coordinated attacks and his okay shield are the only reason why he's not lower, because he's basically providing nothing else to the team. No outro skill buff, nothing. Baizha. I do think Baija's gonna go into top of B. Even though she's strictly a worse version of Arena in this game mode, she is going to be pretty okay to use. Because A, she's HP scaling, she does more healing than Shorekeeper, but because of her lack of damage buffs or them not being as good, we're gonna have to drop her down a little bit relative to Shorekeeper. And she's obviously a lot slower, way more clunky when swapping, but she does heal more than Shorekeeper does. That's something decent to think about. She also has coordinated attacks, even though it's only 4 of them, but 4 is still better than nothing. Sanhua. I would say Sanhua goes into like a solid A for me. Sanhua's very low field time means that that's inherently more survivability because the less time you need to spend in annoying ass animations, the more time you can spend on like the character you're actually gonna be dodging or healing with, I think it's perfectly okay. I think actually she could go into S. I'm not super sure because I'm thinking about who she supports. She can support a DPS Brant, a DPS Cantarella, and those are kind of like the main teams you want to do. She can support a Camellya, but if you're using Camellya in this game mode, you're just not really going to have fun. So I would say this is kind of like where I'm feeling. Maybe she goes into like top of A over here. I feel like your DPS character is actually the most important unit in Virtual Crisis because they're typically going to be the one that you're spending the most time on. And any built-in survivability that a DPS unit has becomes much more valuable. And I guess Sanhua does belong in S because because she ensures you get to spend the most time on your DPS unit as possible. Though for Camellya, that is a downside. So factoring in that, I do think Sanhua probably goes into A then. Yeah, I'll just put Sanhua on top of A for now. I could be convinced that she's S. But what I just said is her advantage could also be her disadvantage, as we just see with the Camellya situation. All right, next up, we've got Yang Yang. And I'm going to be real here. I don't think Yang Yang really does anything too crazy in this game mode. I feel like with her being melee, she does have a couple of air attacks. I don't really see too much of like a benefit to actually using her. You could consider her B, but like ER, you don't really need ER because there's no real need to like lead into rotations. Like she provides very fast rotations and energy regen, but it's not that useful. And you could say Yang Yang is carried by Carlotta. I'm going to be real here. In this game mode, I would just use Tao Chi with Carlotta. I feel like that would be 30 times better than using Yang Yang. I'm going to be entirely honest. I just don't see a lot of like practical use for her. She might even belong like even a little bit lower too. It's just, I don't feel her to be that useful in any way. Yohu, I mean, she's a healer, right? She's a healer. So we're going to bump her up because she is a healer. But she buffs coordinated attacks. And I don't know, maybe you're running like something with like Cancerella's coordinated attacks do no damage. You would rather just have literally any other healer in your team. You'd rather have Brant, Cantarella. You'd rather have anybody else. You'd rather even have a shielder than Yohu if you want double sustain, because she's not doing anything for sure. Lumi, she's melee but has a range mode, but her range mode does absolutely nothing. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, yeah, you could try her out for sure. I just don't find myself being able to recommend her to a lot of players as like, oh, this is gonna be like somebody that changes everything. I feel like if you have her S6 and you like using her, go for it. But she doesn't have anything remarkable that's gonna make her kit stand out. Her 10-second outro skill is still always annoying. It does buff resident skill damage, which is great for these two, but it's like a 10-second outro skill that's, you know, annoying. And then she just eats your stamina like fucking crazy. So that's gonna be that. Now let's get on to our free rover units. Spectral Rover, honestly, I would have to say Spectral Rover is maybe either bottom of A or potentially top of B. And the reason for that is Spectral Rover, ladies and gentlemen, like I mentioned on the Phoebe section, has the time slow, but then Spectral Rover also has some extra sustain on top of it, where they actually do some healing on their S4 and, you know, keep the team topped up like a little bit. You combine this with a baseline healer like not your Brant, but your Verita and your Shorekeeper. Boy, oh boy, you're probably having a pretty good time. It's probably pretty okay. So they work best in slot with one of the best in slot characters, Phoebe. So that kind of like brings their ranking up a decent amount. But again, that time slow plus the healing, they're kind of a very strong unit. Just don't try to use them too much in Penitent's End because they will get melted trying to get into melee range, applying all those frazzle stacks. But otherwise, in all the other stages, I think they're very good. They feel very nice. And they also have the Spectral Frazzle debuff stage to work with as well. That's 75%. Havoc Rover, yeah, they're either like here or like low-key, they're here. If you're using them mainly as like a burst DPS, maybe there's potential, but I'm gonna be real, when you're in the Dark Surge state with them and you're like trying to deal damage and you're using their basic attacks, they need to be like right next to the enemy for them to do anything. And it's just the end result is that they just don't feel great. However, the reason why I'm not gonna rate them any lower, and I might actually rate them at the top, is pretty simple. Spectral Rover has something, or Havoc Rover has something a little bit unique. And that is the fact that, you might not know this, in the Dark Surge state, their 5th basic attack restores HP. And so maybe this is like gonna be the difference between like surviving or not. Like you've got like the healing ready to go. Maybe that's something that'll work out for you. And like, it's copium, but that's why I'm gonna give them like a decent spot up here. My generalized take on this is if you're a melee unit, you just don't feel very good in this game mode. Brant doesn't really feel like a melee unit because he's in the air and he isn't affected by the same problems other melee units have. And Changli has his time slow. But in regards to this entire tier list, I do feel like this is very fair. Just doing like a bit of a review. I do think this is very fair because this game mode has no time limit. I'll say it again. This game mode has no time limit. A big focus of it is survival. It is survival. And what that means is that the characters in the units that are really able to emphasize that are able to combine damage with survivability as well, are going to be the highest value ones. And unfortunately, those that kind of like enjoy taking hits, those that, you know, have some issues with like mobility and like have some issues with not being able to damage enemies unless they're right next to them, that can be a bit of a problem. And so what I'm going to do over here is, I think this is where I'm going to call it for now. I guarantee that if you use any of the units that are in the first two categories in your team, you're probably going to have a very easy time of clearing. I do think you're going to have a very easy time of clearing. I don't think anyone can really dispute that. If you stick to all the units that are in S and A, you'll have a great time in the game mode. But as you like start going down and you start experimenting with some stuff like your Yohus, your Havoc Rovers, your Danjins, your Jiyans, things could get really messy really quickly. Yinlin might deserve to be a little bit higher as well, but you know, she's a little bit tricky to play, has her own differences, can't really parry, all that. Maybe that's something to keep in mind. Maybe we'll move her a little bit closer to the top of A and kind of like lead the list over there. But with that, that's gonna be our final take. Let me know what you all think. Peace.